Hi, everyone. We're going to be starting this just very shortly, waiting on a few more folks to join.
For some reason, some people are telling me they're having difficulty getting on. So give me a second. I'm trying to find out why.
Hello, it's Congressman Maloney.
Hey, Congressman.
Hello, Congressman.
Hello.
We're just giving a few attendees a moment to continue logging in, and then we will kick off in just a moment.
No problem. Thank you.
Hey, Congressman, Dan Ahaus here. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Dan. I'm sorry. I could hear you.
Yeah, thanks for making the time.
You bet. Spend a lot of time on conference calls and webinars and Zoom and technology-assisted meetings. So I'm pretty familiar with the startup drill. So I'm here. I'm going to mute the phone, but just let me know when you're ready to proceed.
Okay, Nancy, I believe Mike is on. So
Nice job.
I would say you're welcome. I think we can start if people would like to start. I say go ahead, Chris.
Okay, Chris, would you like me to kick it off?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, so for those of you who are joining us, welcome to the Orange County IDA's webinar on federal resources for Orange County small businesses. I'm Laurie Villasuso. I'm the CEO of the Orange County IDA. First and foremost, before we go any further, on behalf of the IDA board and staff, I wanted to take this time to thank those of you on this call or watching this webinar later who are our front lines during this crisis. You know, we don't get a chance often to interact with this many people all at once, so we wanted to extend our gratitude to our healthcare workers, doctors and nurses, administrators, janitors, technicians, everyone basically who's working long hours under these unprecedented conditions to help people get better and to keep people safe. We're so grateful for every vending machine meal, every mask through space, every lost night of sleep, every nap taken on a chair, and every moment you've sacrificed with your families just to get America and New York better. I'd also like to offer my deepest gratitude for the underappreciated essential workers who are truly keeping our economy running and our lives as normal as possible. We'll never be able to send enough appreciation to those other frontline workers, the food service workers, people at Walmart, grocery stores, pharmacies, clerks and stockers, sanitation workers, bankers, small business owners, restaurant owners, mail carriers, delivery people, everyone who's essentially exposing themselves to risk each and every day so that those of us who have the luxury of isolating can continue to do so. You know, our lives, our country are depending on everyone's hard work, and you deserve so much more than just our thank you. It's our hope after this crisis is behind us that we can appreciate and compensate every one of you for what you have always done, essentially, and what you're continuing to do for us. We literally could not get through any of this without you. So thank you from all of us to every one of you. That being said, today is the second in a series of webinars sponsored by the Orange County IDA to help the Orange County businesses cope with COVID-19. On April 2nd, our focus was on how to introduce the participants to the CARES Act and to provide information on how to apply. Today, we're in a new phase of the stimulus program. Many businesses have already applied, and only very few in our region have received funding, and there are a lot of questions about the next steps. We're going to get to those questions and answers in a moment, but I wanted to let you all know about our next webinar, which will be on Thursday, the 23rd of April at 9. That one will focus on adapting your business in coronavirus time. This next webinar will provide you with the information on how we can all meet the changing expectations of employees and customers as businesses start to reopen. But for today, we'd like to discuss where the status, discuss the status on the SBA programs, how they might relate to your business personally, and to get your questions teed up to get you some answers. We are so lucky to have Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney with us today, along with two of the staff members, a representative from the Small Business Administration and the Orange County IDA's federal consultants from the law firm of McAllister and Quinn. Before I turn it over to the Congressman and his office, I did want to take a moment to thank Congressman Maloney for coordinating with us to have someone from the SBA on the webinar today. You know, there are a lot of people with a lot of questions, and we know that the SBA is very busy, as well as the Congressman's office. We know there are a lot of questions and issues, and we're so happy to have staff here today to address those directly. So with that being said, Congressman Maloney, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me okay. I want to thank you for convening this group, and I'm pleased that we have Beth Goldberg on from the district, our district at SBA, to answer your questions as well. SBA is on the front lines of so many of these programs that have been put in place by Congress, and the implementation of these programs and how they're showing up for you is really what I'm hoping to learn from today's call. I know we have members of my staff on, Ernest Kleppeis, my district director, Beverly Hart, who works for me in Washington. I want folks to know we are open for business, and you can always call my office. We want to hear from you, and we want to know what your experience is with these programs that we have put in place in Washington. My number is 845-561-1259. We're working remotely, of course, but we will call you back if you have to leave a message. We want to know what's showing up. Now, I don't need to give you the whole rundown of everything that's been done. I'm sure the SBA folks can do that. If you're interested, you've probably heard the top line programs that have been put in place that should be meaningful for local businesses. But there have been a number of bottlenecks that I suppose are not that surprising given the speed and the size of this crisis and the programs that are being rolled out, but that can be very frustrating for people. I know that SBA direct lenders have been dealing with all sorts of frustrations around the guidance that should have been put in place by now that will allow them to get money out the door to the hundreds of approved loans that they have ready to go, but they have not been able to issue. That bottleneck should be easing up, but I want to hear what your experience is. And then there are the indirect lenders who have been bumping up against their lending limits, and that's a whole nother problem that needs to be worked through as well. And those two things I think have caused some frustration locally. At least that's what I'm hearing. In addition to that, you're probably seeing the national headlines today around the program itself, the Paycheck Protection program running out of money because it is now fully obligated. And there are negotiations going on right now. I just got off a conference call with the speaker and the committee chairman. You know, there are negotiations going on between the congressional leadership and Secretary Mnuchin that should bear fruit any minute now to continue to fund these programs so that the resources are there even once the bottlenecks people have experienced get eliminated. The whole philosophy here is that we can bridge all of you who are struggling through this pandemic, and that there will be a structural soundness and a pent-up demand on the other side of it that should allow the economy to recover in pretty rapid fashion. Whether that's a V-shaped recovery, as you hear, or something that is longer and more difficult, I don't know. But what we must do is we must make it possible for people to survive, because we have, as you know, simply shut down the economy to combat the public health emergency, and that's going to continue for a while. This week, tens of millions of people should be receiving the direct payments, which should help with aggregate demand and just allow people to put food on the table and pay some bills. 60 million some odd Americans are enrolled in direct deposit. They should get those payments in the next few days. Millions more will be receiving payments on a rolling basis as checks get put out at about 5 million a week, as I understand it, from the Treasury Department thereafter. People can go to the IRS website theoretically and sign up through their portal for direct deposit at this point if they want to speed up their direct payments. And then the third big leg of this stool, in addition to the Paycheck Protection Program and the direct payments, is, of course, the expanded unemployment insurance benefits that have been made more generous and more comprehensive. And there have been frustrating bottlenecks at the State Department of Labor in terms of the website and the call centers. I know the governor is aware of this. Believe me, we have communicated that message. A lot of people are frustrated by it. But those bottlenecks should be easing up. They have surged the server capacity and the call center capacity and changed some of their procedures. So the direct payments, the unemployment benefits, and the small business Paycheck Protection Program are the key elements of the CARES Act, along with some other key things for our region, like support for our hospitals who have been taking a huge hit in terms of canceling all their elective surgeries, and so we know they're struggling and need help. And of course, our transportation networks, Metro North, MTA, which did quite well in the first CARES package, but are going to need more help. And there's more that relates to direct money to local governments, direct money to school districts, all of the components of our society, our economic system, and our social structure that is being put under stress now. You know, it is an extraordinary and unprecedented and bipartisan effort at the federal level to try to bridge this crisis by surging resources towards those in need. But this is uncharted territory, and I don't blame any of you for being skeptical or frustrated with the experience you may be having. I'm frustrated by some of these things, and while I want to say thank you to the SBA folks for being on the phone, one of the questions that we are trying to get answered, and maybe we can get to that today, is what data is available for what money is being put out in my congressional district. I want to know what the numbers are for the Paycheck Protection Program in the 18th congressional district. We ought to know it for the counties. We ought to know it for the state. We ought to have full transparency nationally, and that has not been available to date. So the information I'm giving you is because, you know, we call Derek Weinkoop at Wallen Savings Bank, or we call the folks at the Hudson Valley Credit Union, or we anecdotally hear from constituents and small business owners about what their experience is. But we should have data, and we should keep making progress even through the problems, because speed is critical here. But it doesn't excuse the bottlenecks. It doesn't excuse the limitations. We also have to keep in mind areas of the economy like our small farmers in the Hudson Valley that are critical to our local economy, that are going to be helped through other types of programs. And there are other pieces to this that are going to be very important. That's why we have more work to do. We're not done. We need a fourth major package, even if we do an interim step to fund the SBA loan program, maybe some hospitals and state and local aid the next day or two. There will still be a need for more work on the federal level. Last point, even as we get on top of the short-term public health emergency and the short-term economic relief to individuals and small businesses, we are going to have a longer, medium, and long-term challenge around economic recovery. that's where things like giving you back your state and local deductions would matter a lot, and we're fighting for that. Also, I want to see a massive federal infrastructure bill passed. We have an opportunity to do that in May, I believe. That would be about $1 trillion over 5 years. These are desperately needed investments in our nation's infrastructure. Money is essentially free at this point, so even if you were going to rely inordinately on debt at this point to do infrastructure investments, you could do it at incredibly favorable interest rates. But there are traditional sources of revenue that we ought to rely on too. Point is that we should be taking this moment of bipartisan cooperation, and we should be focusing on the short-term health emergency, beating the epidemic, the immediate economic needs of working and middle-class families and small businesses in the Hudson Valley and throughout the country, and the long-term recovery and economic stimulus that our country desperately needed before the epidemic, but needs even more now. And in addition to that, we need to learn some lessons from this. So we put in place the kind of early warning and coordination and technology solutions that will allow us to be much better prepared for a future pandemic of this kind, so that we are never in this position again. But that's as much time as I'm going to take from all of you. I do have a little time to stay on the line, but I'm wanted in some other meetings as well, so I may have to drop at some point. But I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to speak to you, to give you this update. If the technology permits, I'm happy to take questions or to turn it over to the SBA, who will be probably a more useful source of practical information for all of you. But thank you for the opportunity to be with you all, and I hope everyone is safe and getting through this okay.
Thank you, Congressman. Beth, did you want to take it from there? Maybe talk a little bit about the SBA?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman, for the opportunity to be here in the Orange County IDA. In normal times, the SBA is the lender of last resort. We're here when traditional lending institutions cannot make small businesses loans, and in times of disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, fires. It's the only time we usually do direct lending. And if you can imagine, in those times of direct lending that the SBA does, therefore, limited geographic area. It's the first time in our nation that the entire country, all 50 states and the territories, have been declared a national disaster area. In the past 14 days, SBA has done as much lending as it's done in the past 14 years. So the volume of things that the tiniest agency in the federal government has been handling has been monumental for all of us. And 24/7, I think we need an extra 8 hours a day in our day in order to keep up on and keep on top of things, along with our lenders who have stepped up in an extraordinary manner to change their systems to try to handle the mass volume that they're seeing. So in any given year, we have about a $30 billion allocation, and we do 66,000 loans nationally. I haven't seen the numbers for the closing of the loans that happened around noon today, but on my briefing yesterday, we were at about 1,400,000 in loans, and just under 5,000 banks have participated in our program since the Paycheck Protection program went live on April 3rd. So I'm just briefly going to go over. I see you have your the Paycheck Protection program up. Just let me say that is a short-term program that uses the bank's own capital reserves to make loans. The SBA steps in with a 100% guarantee and has waived fees for the borrowers in this program. Most businesses that are legal are eligible to apply, and on April 10th, we opened up to independent contractors and self-employed individuals. The banks There's a sample application on our website, but this is a bank or lender, credit union, community bank program, and the applications that they will want to see are their applications because, again, it's their money that they are lending. It's short-term money, 8 weeks, basically to keep your staffs intact. Based on, based on your payroll, a maximum of, $100,000 per person, 8 weeks of salary, and they allow you 25% of the loan amount for expenses such as rent, mortgage interest, utilities, health insurance payment, and some taxes. Other than that, there's nothing else in this particular program that's fundable. If you use 75% of your loan for payroll, the loan will be forgiven. The banks will determine that at the end of June, what you did with the money, and the banks will be certifying whether or not, when I say banks, again, I mean lenders, will be certifying whether or not you made the criteria. If you didn't make the criteria, it will become a loan with a 24-month payment term. The first 6 months are deferred, so you have actually 18 months that you will be paying this loan off at 1%. The economic intrigue loans, the second one that you have on your slide here, is where your Uncle Sam is the bank. The federal government is actually lending money. And the application for this loan can be found on Sba.gov. And the loan goes up to $2 million. It's a longer term in your mind. It should be a longer term planning loan. 6 months worth of expenses can be put into this loan. It's like a working capital loan with a very long payback for cash flow. So even though the loan is for businesses have a 3.75% interest rate, and for not-for-profits a 2.75% interest rate, a $20,000 loan under this program over 30 years would cost you less than $100 a month to pay back. And this loan has a deferment of 12 months. Your first payment will not be for 12 months. So the Paycheck Protection Program, you have a shorter term payback over a course 6 months deferral, and you pay back over the next 18 months. And in this loan, you have a 12 months deferral, and the payback is over a 30-year term. Both loan programs right now are on hiatus. We're awaiting appropriations from Congress for more money. Both loan programs are tremendously oversubscribed. In the first program, we know that there were, just as of yesterday, just about 1.4 million loans that were not given. Money was set aside for them by the lending institutions filing forms. There are 30 million small businesses that meet the definitions for this loan, so there's tremendous demand, and the SBA is, waiting for more capital to be appropriated to the program so that we can continue to administer it. Next steps. We have free resources throughout the district. In the Lower Hudson Valley, we have 2 small business development centers, one at Rockland Community College and one at Ulster County. And you can receive free, meet with a free business advisor virtually, set up an appointment. You can get your paperwork ready. They can best go over which decision is better for you. We also have score counselors that are available. In Westchester, we have a chapter. I'm not sure if there's a chapter in the Hudson Valley. I have to check that. But they do remote. Everything is remote, either through Skype and Zoom these days, or telephone for an appointment. And they'll be happy to service you even from the New York City chapter of SCORE. I know we have a chapter up in Rockland. I've been up there with Mark Rothenberg. So I would suggest, while we wait for the next appropriation, that we get paperwork ready and be ready to go so that people can submit their applications. And unless there's something that you want me to talk about on the next slide, Lori?
No, I think that's
good right now.
because you're going to be able to hang out for a little while with us, right?
Yes, I'm good for another half an hour.
Great. Okay, in that case, I think that was a nice segue for McAllister and Quinn. So we're lucky to have with us once again Chris Fish, Casey Newell, and Jake Pardon from McAllister and Quinn. Again, as a reminder, they are the IDA's federal experts on the SBA lending and with a lot of the things that every business is dealing with right now. So they're going to start to follow up on some more details that are important to share with you. As a reminder too, on the webinar, you can type some questions in, and Casey or Chris, when you guys take over, if you want to just remind everybody where that is on their screens, because mine is different and I don't know what it looks like, just so that everybody who has a question can contribute throughout the conversation. Casey and Chris will bring those up at the end so that we can kind of address everything all at once. So Casey, Chris?
Thank you. This is Chris, and just to Lori's point, if you look on your computer screen, folks, on the right-hand side for that section underneath webcam, you'll see a blinking cursor. If you have questions, write your questions in there, and then a send prompt will come up for you to send that information in. And again, with our colleagues on the phone here from the Small Business Administration, definitely, put your questions in. We do want to get to them. And maybe on that note, Lori, if we could go back to the slide before just for 1 second, I think maybe it might be helpful with Beth, again, a half hour of her time. Just a couple of questions. I know, Beth, that we've heard, quite a bit from folks. If I have my PPP in right now with a bank, is there any sense when I have it in how long it's going to take, for that to be actually processed and then approved? Maybe just a little bit more of an explanation. I think, you mentioned, all money has been, if I'm correct, appropriated. So if I haven't heard back, from my bank, yet, I assume then I'm going to have to wait for, additional funding from Congress, from the administration to finalize. Could you just give us a little bit more clarity on that in terms of folks that have applications in? If they haven't heard back from the bank, they're not going to receive funding from this CARES Act increment in terms of funding that was available.
So anecdotally, we heard that, we have heard that some people have already received their money. Each bank has a different operating system. So you submit an application and, it has to be perfect, right, for the bank to then submit for an authorization from the SBA. So there's no way for me to know when a loan has been submitted. When a borrower submits to the bank, there's no way for SBA to know that application has been submitted to the bank. SBA only knows when the bank is requesting the guarantee because they're going to approve the loan. And in this circumstance, unlike in our normal lending, we have no way to ascertain borrower by borrower what is going on with that at this point in time. So calling the only people who know what they've done with those applications are the banks. I know it's not the answer you want, but that's the answer. That's the only answer I have for you right now.
No, understood, and that's helpful. And maybe just a couple questions again on this slide, I think just would be helpful. In terms of you put your PPP in, if I'm correct, what we've seen is, you know, you then get a notification from the bank that your loan has been accepted, and then you're basically then waiting for funding. We have seen funding arrive in the total dollar amount for the ones we've been involved in. Is that the process? All of your funding comes in that one allocation, you know, for this 8-week period, it will come in that one allocation?
Again, anecdotally, that's what I've been hearing from people who have gotten their money, that what they've asked for is what they have gotten.
Okay.
But
And
again, I have
maybe
no
one
way to
last,
verify that, right? So.
understood. And then one last question on PPP, and then one question on the economic injury disaster loan. But for PPP, we've also heard that, you know, there's qualified SBA banks that maybe are not participating. And is that something, or if you're a qualified SBA lending institution, do you have to participate in this program, or this is at the decision of that lending institution? They are not forced, to participate.
Okay, so this is a great question. So nobody is forced to participate in our lending. So for many years, we could have had a lending, authorization with XYZ Bank. And just because XYZ has it doesn't mean they ever use it. In this case, a lot of those, we've had to dust off a lot of those authorizations, and because of the continuity of corporate history, we've actually, some banks didn't even know they had authorization. And we've been, on our wholesale side of when we deal with our lenders, we've been doing a lot of work with them. The new lenders, in the last 2 weeks, there have been about 500 lenders nationwide added under a special delegated authority to do this program. In addition, I'm a little lost on my days. Either on Monday or Tuesday, there was a press announcement that such organizations as Square, Intuit, and PayPal have gotten approval to do lending, but I think it happens on Tuesday, to be honest with everyone. And Wednesday, we sort of knew that we were providing a guarantee $1 billion every hour that we were going to be running out of authorization. So in the second round, there should be a lot more lenders available to people. The really important thing is there's a lot of scams out there right now. The only place to really find out whether it's a authorized SBA lender or not is to go to our website, sba.gov/Paycheck Protection Program. And you will see on that page a navy blue box, and it'll say find a lender here. And it asks you to put your zip code in. And when you put your zip code in, the lending institutions will come up. If they're not on that website, I would not suggest going through with a loan application to anyone else, unless you've seen it. Like, I don't know. I really am an old-fashioned girl. I don't know how Paychecks and Intuit are going to be listed because they're, web-based companies, and we haven't seen anything. But SBA.gov is the only valid website. There are people out there that are marketing themselves, for example, under SBA.com and SBA.org, and a whole host of other small business lending names. And they are not the SBA, and their loans do not come with the guarantee. The only institutions are the ones on our website. So I hope I answered your question in some form.
No, understood. And just one question for you on the economic injury disaster loans. So,
Okay.
Again, as you stated too, this is a loan program where you don't deal with a bank or a credit union. You deal directly with SBA. And I think we noticed today that it's no longer taking applications. Obviously, in terms of the funding, is no longer available. We're waiting for additional funding. If
Correct.
I put an application in and I just haven't heard anything back, is my application still going to be processed, or it's unknown in terms of if there's funding to cover my application that has already been put in? I just haven't heard anything back from the SBA.
Correct. So to the best of my knowledge, as of 5:03 p.m., 5:05 p.m., it's first come, first serve. If you have an application in, you're in the queue. If we get, I understood some money has started to be released on that. On those economic injury advance that people had said were to be, up to a maximum of $10,000. The agency put $1,000 per employee advance, as you have on your slide here. And the reason they did that is that they felt that was the fairest way to get the most money, up to the $10,000 out to people. So I have heard, again, anecdotally, that some people got emails telling them what's going to happen. Some people got emails and money, and some people just got money. So I cannot answer how someone's going to hear. I can just tell you what I've been hearing from people who, have gotten back to me about what they, what's been happening to them. So that program was first come, first serve. And again, I guess until the money, if you're in the queue and the money hasn't run out to whatever number you were, there were millions of applications to that program as well.
Okay. Lori, maybe a thought, Casey, if you want to go up 2 slides, but Lori, maybe a thought, just with the time that we have with Beth, on the webinar with us. Casey is pointing out we're getting quite a bit of questions. Maybe if we go to questions specifically, Jake, or Casey, if you want to go 1 slide up. And then, just folks, if you have been on the webinars prior with IDA, this is just a simple overview of the 2 programs we're talking about, the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This slide deck has about 3 slides on each one of these. This will be on the website for the IDA for you to look at. But again, maybe, Lori, it's best if we have Casey, maybe just go through some of these questions, and if we could take advantage again of the time of Beth being on the webinar with us.
I think that's a great idea.
All right. Give me 1 moment, please, while I pull these up.
I have one while Casey pulls that up. I actually got a message from someone who's on the call who is talking about the timing of the PPP. If they can get back open, how do we get someone who's on unemployment getting $600 bonus back to work? The benefits of the 8-week timeline doesn't seem to give us, he says, will not give us any or very little forgiveness. So are there any maybe considerations or suggestions, Beth, that you have in terms of timing for the businesses and how they can best maximize the program?
Sure. So this is like a little convoluted because it's federal money and I don't do unemployment. So this is what I know from that we've been briefed from the business's point of view. With unemployment, you are going to have to sign a declaration for that employee. And there's apparently, I'm going to use an old-fashioned box to check off. And you have to state whether or not your job is still available for that employee. So Jane is your employee and she goes to get unemployment and you have offered her job back under this Paycheck Protection Program. If you check off the box that her job is available and you're willing to hire her back, she is supposedly not going to get unemployment. And that unemployment bonus is $600 a week is, I think, for the same 8 weeks as this program. So did that sort of answer your question? Right?
Well, I think so. I mean,
right? I mean, some people are not going to want to come back to, I'm hearing this. I've done a lot of webinars this week, and it's a big concern because New York is like a high unemployment state anyway. I think it goes, I was on with one of the commissioners from New York City on a webinar earlier in the week, and they have a labor specialist that was on. I think unemployment in, I guess, New York City, I don't know for the state, so you'll forgive me, but it goes from $182 to $504, she said. And then you add $600, so now you're, you could potentially be at a unemployment check of $1,100 a week. But that's going to end, right? So, and you have a job that you can potentially offer a person, so that becomes a really hard decision, and the business has to decide how are they going to check that box off, right? So,
Right. Thank you. I think that addresses it. Casey, do you have the other questions?
Yeah, so the first question I have on my end that popped up is, quote, is funding available for home-based businesses?
so if you file either Schedule C, that you're a sole proprietor, it doesn't ask you where your business is located, I don't believe, on the loan application, or if the bank wants your business account, they have that information, or the K1, if you do box 1, business, ordinary business income, and box 14, self-employment income, then you're eligible to apply. You have to have real business record keeping. And again, that's a question, if somebody has a concern about that, I would seek a free business counselor at either the WBC Women Business Center SCORE or the SBDC before I filed that application. Because again, I'm not seeing the record keeping that someone's doing right now. But my answer is, if you're running a valid business, then you're eligible to apply for this loan.
All right, next question. We have a few folks here who have reported applying for the EIDL loans during those programs' opening days, so well within the time frame that the money was available, and still having not yet received the $10,000 advance or any indication or feedback from the SBA. They're just looking for
So can you
general
repeat
feedback.
that? They
Yeah,
applied for the program during those opening days, is that what you said?
yeah, within the first 72 hours roughly of the EIDL launching.
So the EIDL launched and then was pulled back because the system crashed and then reopened. If you got caught in that period and got an email, you were directed to reapply under the new simplified application, and that you would not lose your place in the queue. So again, anecdotally, I have heard from businesses that called the 800 number after they reapplied, and they were verified that they did not lose their place in the queue. Some people told me that the old application had a number that started with a 2, and that the new application had a number that started with a 3. So they have to check their numbers, their application numbers. And let me give you the 800 number to call. It's 800-659-2955. Now, normally like 200 people staff our call center. The administrator has done an amazing job, and they've brought in some private sector call centers, and there are now 7,000 people manning our call centers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And with that, there could be a wait between an hour and 2 hours. But everyone who's called said that they've gotten through on the timeline that they've said, and that they have gotten the answers they needed. As far as whether their application was still in the queue and the new application had been, the new application had indeed been filled, and they were still they still held their same place.
All right, thank you for that. So another question we have from someone who owns an S Corp, and that company just consists of them, the corporate officer, and 2 1099 independent contractors. She's wondering
Okay.
if her corporation, her S Corp, would be eligible to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program.
So she is, I assume that she fills out a Schedule C on a 941. But the 2 1099 the 2 1099 contractors are independent businesses on their own, and they must file for their own Paycheck Protection Program.
Okay, great. Another question from someone who is a partner / owner in 2 separate businesses, one of which he's planning on applying for PPP and awarding himself the under $100,000 in salary that he can. He's wondering if, because his other business is technically inactive and he's not receiving salary for that, can he simultaneously apply for PPP for the one program and apply for unemployment as a partner under the other under the other company?
So in his active company, if he's a Schedule C or he's a partner in a K1, again, and is getting box 14 self-employed income from that, he can apply for the PPP. If your business is not making money, you're not eligible for PPP. And I'm not an expert on the unemployment, so I'm going to pass on that one because that's state law, and I don't really have any expertise in that.
So another question, actually from a few folks here, wondering if the SBA is going to come up with some way to refine its lender search tool to include only PPP participating banks, or if that's not likely to happen in the near future.
So that website that I gave you, sba.gov/Paycheck Protection Program, has that active lender, find a lender box by zip code. And those are the banks that have said that they're going to do the PPP program. If they're not in the bank, I want to reiterate, if they're not in that, find a lender box, they're not participating in PPP.
Okay. Let's see. Just scrolling through some of these questions. Give me one moment.
And
all right,
Beverly, I just want to say, Beverly, are you still on the line here? We're happy to provide, Matt.
Yeah.
We're happy to provide you later tomorrow, probably tomorrow at the hour it is, with some of these links that you can then share with the folks that, so they know they're at the right place.
That would be great. Thanks, Beth.
Okay. Go ahead. You have more questions?
A few, yes.
All right. I do this with my staff every morning, so it's all right.
So another question, just asking to repeat, on the new website for EIDL applications, just a question on whether the one that started with 2 was the old one or whether that is the new website.
Not a website, your application number, your, whatever number you were assigned when you applied. If you had a 2, that's the old one. If it starts with a 3, that's the new one. I haven't seen it myself, so I know I sound a little off, but that's the information I was given from headquarters.
Another question, is there some publicly available metric released by the SBA on how PPP program participants will have their loans forgiven based on the number or percentage of employees that they bring back?
So no, we haven't gotten guidance on that yet. So there's just a general statement, and the banks haven't gotten guidance on that yet. But you have to take 75% of whatever you borrowed. So just easy to use $100,000 or $10,000 as a round number. $7,500 had to go to payroll, and 25%, $2,500 or less for other expenses in order for you to be considered for loan forgiveness. It's called the Payroll Protection Program. So that's one of the reasons, if I can just, have my old hat on as an underwriter, you may want to look at the Payroll Protection Program for the payroll for the 8 weeks, and you may want to look at the Economic Injury Disaster Loan for other working capital expenses, especially if you're in a high rent district where your rent, may very well be higher than your payroll, right? You may want to look at the economic injury. You cannot take 2 sources of public money to pay for the same expense. That's a felony. So again, that's where it's important to seek advice. You may want to go to one of our resource partners and who have been trained on this. Even like, for example, in the city of New York, they were for a point in time running their own loan program. So you couldn't take the city of New York's loan money and the federal government's, payroll protection and our economic development loan and make the same application for all 3 and close all 3 for the same purpose. You may apply for 2 separate uses of funds, as long as it's not duplicative in nature.
So another question, just asking that since these 2 programs aren't currently available until more legislation gets passed or funding is allocated, are there any other programs under the SBA that you would recommend or direct folks to in the meantime?
There is a bridge loan available up to $25,000. I don't have the link off my head, top of my head, but we can send that link to Beverly tomorrow. And I am not aware of anything that the state of New York is doing currently. I don't know if you have business owners that are in the city, but I'll just mention this, that the city of New York has worked out something with the City Bar Association to provide free legal help with your mortgages if you have commercial property. And I forgot who their other partner is, but to help you with understand your insurance policies and whether or not viruses cover it. But I'm not aware of anybody in the state doing that.
So at least on the questions that I'm receiving right now, actually, no, yeah, at least on the questions I'm receiving for the moment, there are no new ones.
Okay, that's good. Do you want me to hang out for another 5 minutes, or are you going to go?
Maybe Beth, just one question for you, Beth. Just you mentioned that if I heard you correct, maybe just for folks to understand, you mentioned that if your company is not making money, if it's not profitable, if I'm wrong on this, please correct me. But if your company is not profitable before you're going after a PPP, you will not be eligible. And if I misunderstood that, I apologize. Just please correct me.
No, I believe if you're not paying salaries and you're not profitable, you're not taking money, then you're not eligible to apply. But you could discuss that with your bank, because again, that's a general statement, and I'm not seeing what you're running through as expenses. The question that was asked seemed like the company was dormant almost, right? The question that was asked. I understand that there could be companies that are paying payroll to people and may not be making money. So you would need to talk to your bank about that. But I answered a question that seemed like it was pretty much a dormant dead company.
Okay.
Thank you for
Maybe
asking
Lori,
me.
maybe Lori, if it sounds good, there's a couple of slides on the presentation that maybe we could go to and ask Beth maybe to work with us in terms of walking through a couple of more detailed issues for SBA.
Okay. Quickly. I mean, I'm sure I know a lot of people. We're scheduled this until 5:30, so I don't want to take up too much time. But while we have Beth, yeah, if you have a few points you'd like to hit, I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, maybe Casey, if you just go to the SBA Affiliation Rules, and Jake, if you want to walk through these quick, the SBA Affiliation Rules, and then Beth, if there's any comments to make on this, I think this is an important area for folks to understand as well.
Yeah, this is Jake. Just, I think a key eligibility consideration are the SBA affiliation rules, and they're listed out here. There's affiliation, and then these affiliation rules are regarding the count of employees that you have total to qualify for these programs. So for the Paycheck Protection Program, there's 4 tests for affiliation, an affiliation based on ownership. So that's the power to control the company. Whether you have voting equity in the company, or even if you're a minority shareholder that can block actions by the board of directors. There can be affiliations riding on agreements to merge, affiliations based on management when you're controlling other concerns that you have to keep in consideration. Then there's affiliation based on the identity of interest. So that'd be, you're in the same industry, your brothers, in the same geographic area. Is there an affiliation there in terms of you being counted together as the same entity? There was a waiver for SBA affiliation rules for companies that are in NIAX 72, which is basically the hospitality industry. But it's something that you should definitely review per your company situation, whether any of these are going to be an issue for you.
That's what I would concur. They need to review that. This is, very company specific, and they need to understand that on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Maybe Lori, just to end it, I think Casey, if you'd like to just go through the deck. Lori, we do list out here just the resources. Beth made notice of this too, just for the SBA New York office, the SBA Mid-Hudson Valley Development Center as well. And then, Lori, there is a list on here too for SBA qualified PPA lenders throughout Orange County. That's available as well. And I know in terms of time, Lori, I could turn it back to you. Any last comments? We'll turn it to you.
So,
well, thank you.
Excuse me, can you have, if you go back to the resources, there is at Rockland Community College, they service Rockland and Orange. I don't see that listed there. But there is a small business development center there as well. You have the SBA Mid-Hudson and Kingston. I think that's the one that you mean I think that's at Ulster Community College. And there is one at Rockland Community College. It's run by Tom Morley. If you need that contact information, we can provide that tomorrow for you also.
Okay. That would be helpful. I think any further information we can get out would also be helpful. I think I want to thank everybody, Beth, everybody in McAllister and Quinn, and Representative Maloney's office, everybody. I really appreciate your time. I think this is so important. I know there's so much information and so many places to go to get resources. So thank you to all of you. I want to remind everyone listening that the presentation will be on our website by tomorrow, along with the recording of this webinar. So these lists that we kind of move through quite quickly will be accessible, for time and all eternity on our website. And then again, just to reiterate, our next webinar will focus on adapting your business in the times of the coronavirus. So we're again going to discuss topics like new customer and employee expectations, changing behaviors in the marketplace, supply chain issues, industry challenges, and how we can meet them. So we would look forward to everyone joining us next Thursday, April 23rd at 9 a.m. It'll be a little bit of a different time. We'll send out the information again, but our website is ocnyida.com. But most importantly, thank you to everyone who took the time to join us. As a reminder, the IDA is happy to walk you through all of these programs one-on-one. So while there are a lot of different acronyms that are floating around, we have staff dedicated to taking businesses by the hand through the programs, helping them determine which process is right for them, which loan is right for them, which resource is right for them, so you don't have to wade through it all by yourself. We'll help you with that. So for anyone who's listening, you can contact the IDA office through our website, through our phone number, 845-234-4192, and the website is ocnyida.com. And we want to help you in whatever way we can to navigate this territory, and we'll be coming back together. Thank you for all of our panelists, and thank you for everyone for joining us. I think that's all there is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Lori.
Thank you. Bye-bye.